Hello and welcome to Non-Inkables. This is going to be part two of our little comprehensive review series. I am going to be going over section 2 and 3 in this one because section 2 is fairly short. If you haven't checked out part 1, please go do that. Part 1 goes over all of the general rules, the golden rules, and game state check, which I feel like is a very big part. So let's get started. Section 2 is called, as I scroll past it, section 2, so little. Section 2 is called Before the Game. So in Before the Game, there is just one subsection called Deck Rules, 2.1, Deck Rules, and it says 2.1.1, each player's Disney Lorcana deck must meet the following requirements. Alternate play formats have different requirements, okay? So, number 1, the deck must contain at least 60 cards. There is no upper limit of the number of cards in a deck. So you could technically play like a 300 card deck. You could play your whole collection, although you'd probably lose. And also, how do you shuffle that? Rule number 2, the card can contain of up to 2 ink types. So max number of ink is 2, minimum number is 1. Otherwise, you don't have a deck unless they come out with like colorless inks, which they have not yet. So either 1 color or 2 colors of ink. Rule number 3, the deck can contain up to 4 cards with the same full name. So that is like you can play 4 Minnie Mouse Always Classy. You can also play 4 Minnie Mouse Divers, 4 Minnie Mouse Stylish Surfers. So it's the whole name, not just like the character name. 2.1.3. Sorry, I just read that one. 2.1.4, the deck can't contain any banned cards, obviously, because they're banned. Currently, there are no banned cards in Lorcana, so that may happen in the future. I feel like they're just future proofing. And that's it for deck rules. Next, we're going to get into a big meaty section called gameplay, section 3. And this section is broken up into starting the game at 3.1 and ending the game, 3.2. All right, so starting the game, there's 3.1.1. Starting a game involves several steps that all players follow. Once these steps are completed, the game is considered to be started. So 3.1.2, first, use the method of randomly determining who chooses who is the starting player and takes the first turn of the game. This can include rolling a dice, flipping a coin, or other methods. If this game is next in a best of series, such as best of 3, the losing player of the previous game chooses the starting player. So in best of 3, obviously, if you lose, you get to choose if you want to go first or not the next game. If it's best of 2, though, or I think they don't call it best of 2, they call it something else. In a 2-game format, the first person gets to choose who goes first, and then the second person automatically goes first the second time. 3.1.3, second, each player randomizes or shuffles their deck. Player may use any form of randomization they find convenient and comfortable, but the method chosen must sufficiently randomize the deck. Each player must offer an opposing player a chance to cut their deck after it's shuffled. Once these steps are complete, the deck is ready to play and is placed in the play area. So basically, you got to shuffle. It's got to actually randomize your deck. You can bridge shuffle. You can do, I don't know, I call it like TCG shuffling. And then your opponent can cut your deck. And I think in the tournament rules, they talk more about what qualifies as cutting your deck. So I know that at least at LCQ, there was somebody who just took the top card off the top and put it on the bottom. And technically that is legal, although you are playing psychological mind games because it's like you know the card, but you don't. You could technically shuffle your opponent's deck, I believe, and that counts. That is legal. So next section is 3.1.4. It says third, each player begins the game with 0 lore. Players may use any method for tracking lore, such as pen and paper, lore trackers, or the official Disney Lorcana trading card game companion app. And this is different from tournament rules where you have to use pen and paper, although they also do let you use a boogie board. 3.1.5, fourth, each player draws 7 cards. 3.1.6, fifth, players may alter their hands, beginning with the starting player. So whoever's going first has to alter their hand first. You may hear people say mulligan if they come from other trading card games, or if they've played Lorcana with a lot of people from other trading card games, because I definitely use mulligan because that's what everybody says. Each player can alter their hands only once in each game following the steps listed here. Okay, so how you alter. Step 1, The player selects any number of cards from their hand and places them on the bottom of their deck without revealing them. This is interesting because I'm pretty sure all of us just put it to the side of the deck. Nobody puts them on the bottom. But in the official rules, you got to put them on the bottom of your deck. So remember that, guys. Step 2, the player draws until they have 7 cards in their hand. So essentially, they're drawing however many cards they put on the bottom. Step 3, in turn order, each other player completes step 1 and 2 if they choose to alter their hand. Step 4, each player who altered their hand by 1 or more cards shuffles their deck. So if you didn't alter any cards, you don't have to shuffle your deck. It's already randomized. Step 5, each player who altered their hand offers an opposing player a chance to cut their deck. Note that some play events may allow additional randomization methods or require specific ones. So I think going through this, the only thing that is different from what most people do is we usually probably don't put the cards that we're altering at the bottom of the deck until we've taken the cards off the top, and then we'll just put them at the bottom and shuffle. But in the technical rules, you got to put them at the bottom before you draw the new cards. So interesting. 3.1.7. Overall, all players have altered or chosen to not alter their hand. The game officially starts with the starting player's beginning phase. See section 4.2. And 3.1.8, certain formats or tournament policies may add to, remove from, or otherwise adjust these rules. Interesting. The next section is 3.2, ending a game. 3.2.1, a game can end one of these ways. So, first way a game can end, when a player reaches 20 lore, they win the game. Second way a game can end, if a player attempted to draw from a deck with no cards since the last game state check, that player loses the game. All cards in play and any abilities or effects waiting to resolve that belong to the player who loses the game are immediately removed. If this occurs in a multiplayer game, the game continues. If this was the losing player's turn, the game progresses to the next player's turn after any effects have been resolved. So that is for if you're playing a multiplayer game. Obviously, if you're playing a 2-player game and that person loses, the game is over. Number 3, if a player is the last person left in a game, they win the game. So pretty basic. And actually, I think we'll put section 4 in a different video because it is very, very long. So this section is pretty short. We basically went over what your deck has to have. So 60 cards, 2 ink color types, no more than 4 cards with the same full name, and no banned cards. And then gameplay, how we start a game and how we end a game. So basically goes over altering and shuffling and letting your opponent cut your deck, all that stuff. And I think the only real thing that was different from what we normally do is that technically when you alter, you put the cards on the bottom before you draw the new cards. Okay, so that is it for part 2. We went over sections 2 and 3. Tune in for part 3 where we will go over section 4. All right, bye. As always, keep shuffling and hopefully you don't end up with a whole fan. Blah, blah, blah. As always, keep shuffling and hopefully you don't end up with a whole handful of non-inkables like me. All right, bye.